Hey, my name is Shelly, and this is my channel, Shell Space. Since Valentine's Day is around the corner, I thought it would be fun to do a romantic recommendation video, but I actually don't read that many romance books enough to recommend anything to anybody. So I thought it would be fun to recommend some manga. So if that sounds like fun, stick around and let's get to it. So I'm fighting off a cold right now, so if I'm like clearing my throat and sound like a frog, you know why. Okay, so this is in no particular order, except for maybe the first, number one. I think that's like kind of like my favorite out of all of them. So the first one is Lovely Complex by Aya Nakahira, also known as Love-Com. And this is an older manga. I think it was like in the early 2000s, and it was just something special that really stood out to me. And it's about a girl who is really tall and a guy who is really short, and they somehow find that they keep getting stuck together in these situations, and because nobody wants to date the short guy and nobody wants to date the tall girl, so whenever there's like their friends are like coupling off, they are always kind of like stuck together. It's about them kind of accepting their own stature, as in like short or tall, whatever, and also finding a really good friend. And then of course it's a romance. Honestly, it's such a great relationship because they start off as friends. Actually, they start off more as like enemies, and then friends, and then lovers. It is a 17-volume manga, and I believe you can get majority of them in English, if not like Kobo or e-reader. Also, there is a anime, which I believe is on Crunchyroll, and I think a live action as well. So that is my first recommendation. My next recommendation is Nana by Aya Yazawa. This is always a tongue twister to say her name. This manga came out in the early 2000s, I think around like early 2000. Let me just double check. 2000, and then it ran until 2009 and is actually currently on hiatus. The mangaka got sick and was unable to continue and has yet to finish the series. The reason why I have this on the list is because I was obsessed with this manga series. It is a manga series. There's 2 live action movies, and it is an anime, and the music is just so good. So this is actually a story about 2 girls named Nana. One, you see here, is a musician, a young musician, and she's in this like punk band, and another one is like this like girly, like, I don't know, she's just like a girly, happy girl who is coming from the country to live in Tokyo, and they somehow meet on a train and they realize that they have the same name and they're both moving from their towns to Tokyo. So after meeting on the train, they kind of separate, and then they are both looking for apartments, and their, I guess, apartment agents or whatever, real estate agents, show them the same apartment at the same time, and they both realize that they can't afford the apartment, but they both want it, so they decide to live together. And it is a romance because they all have like their own romantic interests, but at the heart of the story, it is a best friend story, and I absolutely love it. And honestly, yeah, like I said, this manga pretty much like made up my personality when I was in my younger 20s. I tried to find a picture of what I look like, and if I do, I'll just put it up. But yeah, like I had like a lip rat, I had like wore like dark black clothes and had short hair because I was obsessed with this manga and the movie that came out around the same time. So I highly recommend this manga. Even though it's not completed, it is still an awesome story, and I really hope you check it out. My next recommendation is Don't Mess With Me or Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, and this is by Nanashi. This is technically a shonen manga, and if those who don't know, shonen mean like for younger boys or for like teenage boys. Normally I don't like shonen, but for some reason I just love this series, and it is also an anime. There's 2 seasons currently. It is about this girl, Nagatoro, and Senpai. You don't actually know his name, she just calls him Senpai. She meets him, and he's like this nerdy, reclusive art student, and she basically bullies him into hanging out with her, and just the whole thing is just her harassing him and bullying him, but also at the same time she's very protective of him. He's so antisocial that he doesn't pay attention to people's faces, but she brings him into her like, group of friends, and he like recognizes their faces, but everybody else he's introduced to, he doesn't see their faces. So it's kind of interesting how she brings him into the group, and they bully him, and they really harass him really badly. But she's so protective of him, and he actually develops a relationship with the friends and with her, and it's a slow burn romance, but it's really very touching. She is aggressive, like she's a hard pill to swallow, but once you get past her ridiculousness, you realize that she's a very insecure girl, and she just really, really loves Senpai. And that's all I have to say about that. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for something a little bit different. All right, my next recommendation is another high school, kind of like a shonen. It's kind of like a middle ground shonen shoujo book, and that is Skip and Loafer by Misaka Takamasu. And this is an ongoing series. Oh, I forgot to mention Don't Toy With Me is also an ongoing series, and this is an ongoing series. And this has gotten a lot of praise and attention lately, and it is just almost like a slice of life kind of book. It is a manga, and it also is I think there's one season of the anime, and I think that they're going to be making a second one because it is very popular. Basically, this is about Mitsumi, and she is just a ball of sunshine. She's just the most positive, wonderful, caring person you will ever meet, but she's ugly. And she decides to move to Tokyo. This is an ongoing trend I see in manga. She decides to move to Tokyo, and she goes to high school, and she makes friends with the hot guy in her class. And everybody's really jealous of it, but she's so oblivious to looks and everything like that, so she just sees him as like a really nice guy. And it's just kind of the story of them developing a relationship and her adjusting to living in the city from living in a very she was from like a rural town, so like very minimal people that she dealt with. So adjusting to life, and I believe that her uncle is a transgender woman. So there's a lot of different representations, a lot of different characters. But yes, you do see a small burning relationship, mostly because he likes her, but she is completely oblivious to everything. One of those kind of books. But it's really a slice of life. It is very sweet, very cozy kind of read. So if you want something feel good, like with a good friend foundation, I highly recommend Skip and Loafer. My next recommendation is for you working people, and that is Wotakoi, Love is Hard for an Otaku. Otakus are basically people in Japan who are obsessed about something. So like, you could be really obsessed about anime, you'd be an anime otaku, but they would just call you an otaku. Or if you're really obsessed with like cosplay or like playing games, like video games. This story is about two otakus who meet in a workplace, and then they realize that I can't believe, did they grow up with each other? Yes, they were childhood friends. So they were childhood friends, and they have lost touch, obviously. And then they like bump into each other at work, but they each know that they're both like otakus. So the girl really wants to hide it, and the guy just doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. They go out, and she's like, listen, I really need you to do me a solid. I need you to not tell anybody that I'm like, I think she was into manga. I read a lot of manga. So I need you to not tell everybody that. So then they start dating. And it's the story of them, and it's really cute. And then they're friends from work also. They're a couple as well, and they're also otakus as well. So the story is about the four of them, and it really kind of develops from like them kind of being like friends and then developing something more. And the story format is really short. So like, it's not like an ongoing manga. It's more like snippets of their lives broken up. So you will still follow a series, but it's just like almost very episodic. One issue will like be them going to the manga store. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very mundane, but you still also follow them and develop the relationship. And it's really adorable. So I highly recommend this for people who want more of an office grown-up romance in a manga. Oh, and the anime is on Amazon Prime. My next recommendation is the only one on the list that does not have an anime, and that is Cheeky Brat by Mitsubashi Mayako. And this is probably an underrated series, I would say, because it is popular, but people kind of skip over it. And I think that that is a mistake because honestly, I love this series. The series is about Yuki, and she's a second year high school student, and I think she's like the manager of the basketball team. And from what I remember, it's been a while, she was really obsessed with the previous manager, and then he graduated, and so she's like really sad about it. And then she meets this like first year basketball student, and he's obsessed with her, basically. He like follows her around and not harasses her, but like teases her and just kind of like makes her life a little bit difficult, but also at the same time, he really cares about her and he's very sweet. And it's just really, it's one of those like really funny, feel-good manga, and it's easy to digest. So if you're looking for something like with an older girl and a younger guy, this is your thing. So my next recommendation, we're going to step out from high school to college, and this is A Sign of Affection by Sue Morishita, and from what I remember, I think it's 2 mangakas that are writing this. So the story is about Yuki, so we got another Yuki, who is a university student, but she's deaf. On her way to school one day, she was getting like crowded in the bus, and she was trying to tell somebody to stop, but she was using sign language and they didn't understand. So the super hot guy jumps in and he like kind of defends her, and then he was like, oh, you speak sign language, are you deaf? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, cool, that's really fascinating. And then fast forward, they go to the same university, ha ha ha. And this story is just basically about them developing this relationship and him learning to like speak sign language, and kind of like he introduces her into his life and she introduces him into her life, and it's just a really sweet romance. This is an ongoing manga series, and also it is a new anime series. So if you want to check out the anime series, I believe it just started to air in January, so it's up on Crunchyroll for now. I think there's a couple episodes at least. I highly recommend this for something for like, you know, something a little different, a romance that's a little bit different. My next recommendation is for all you fantasy lovers, and that is Kamisama Kiss by Giulietta Suzuki. And this is a classic, like a modern classic manga and anime series, and it is beloved for a reason. And so we are following Nanami, who basically, so her dad is like a gambler, and he basically gambles them into debt and into poverty, and she's basically homeless. And she doesn't know what to do, and her dad like took off on her, like father of the year took off on her. So now she's like living in the park, and she bumps into this like strange man hanging from a tree because he was being chased by a dog. So then she saves him, and then after saving him, he's like, oh, so you're homeless? And she's like, yeah. He's like, okay, how would you like to live in my shrine? And all I ask is you take care of it. And she's like, well, that's kind of weird. But then she has no other option. She's like, okay, fine, I'll go take care of your shrine. So she comes, he takes her to the shrine, and then she finds out there's like creatures and like mythical creatures there, and she meets Tome, who is the guy that she met, his familiar. And basically the dude, I can't remember what his name is. Oh gosh, I have to look it up. I think it's Mikage. So basically the guy that was in the tree, Mikage, his familiar is Tome, and I think he has another familiar, and I can't remember. And basically, he's like, oh, hey, Tome, this is your new manager. I'm leaving. Peace out. And he, like, takes off on them and basically leaves her in this, like, shrine with these mythical creatures. And Tome is basically, like, I think he's like a kitsune or, like, some sort of, like fox demon. And it's just basically their story about her, like, managing this, like, shrine and having to deal with like these supernatural beings that keep popping up in her life and like ruining her life. Obviously, a romance blooms, and it's just a really cute story, and it's 25 volumes, and there's 1 season of manga, or 1 season of anime, so there's definitely lots to choose from, and I highly recommend it. My next manga recommendation is Toilet Bound Hananko-kun, and this is written by Aidoro. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And I love this series. Like, I think it's a shonen as well. And basically it's about Hananko-kun, and in Japan they have this like myth, kind of like Bloody Mary, where if you go in the bathroom and say Hananko-kun 3 times in the mirror, the ghost will appear, and that ghost is Hananko-kun. But in this story, hananko-kun is a boy. So this story starts off with Nene, and she goes to hananko-kun's, like, toilet and basically asks him to grant her a wish to get a boyfriend. Their destinies kind of get intertwined, and it's just really adorable. And this art in the series is absolutely beautiful. And there's an anime that, like, really envelops the beauty of this manga series, and I highly recommend the anime. I think it's on Crunchyroll as well. So this story kind of starts off really silly and goofy, and you're meeting like all these like ghosts and like yokai and like mythical creatures and legends. But at the same time, it's a very silly story, but also dark and touching. And one of my favorite things about this manga series is the fact watching hananko-kun and Nene, like, this relationship develop and flourish, and it turns into something so special. And I absolutely recommend it, and I love it so much, so I highly recommend it, obviously. Before I mention my final recommendation, I'm just going to give some quick honorable mentions that some stories that you may enjoy. I know that a lot of people love them, so I'll just quickly list them off. Lovely Mix-Up. That is a super cute romance story about a girl that has a crush on a guy, but the guy has a crush on another guy. So it's a mix-up. Silent Voice. This was a really fantastic movie, also a very awesome manga series, and also about a deaf character. And this one is a little bit more on the traumatic side. We're dealing with like bullies. So I highly recommend that. Also, the movie is really fantastic. Fruits Baskets. I don't have to say anything else. Everybody knows about Fruits Baskets. So it's a manga, it's an anime series, it's really good, and if you can withstand the weird big eyes, the story just is so good, but everybody has trauma. Everybody has trauma. So my final romantic manga recommendation is Hana Yara Dango, or Boys Over Flowers, by Yoko Kimiko. This is an older manga series, and it started off, like, I'll show a picture here of, like, the art from the first one. It started off and the art was kind of terrible, but then it ended up, like, looking like this. I'm gonna move over, like that. And honestly, this story is so problematic. Like, it's not even funny, but I love it so much. It's about this girl named Minako, and she wins a scholarship to go to this, like, really prestigious, fancy high school. And she has been going there for a while, and she's made a couple friends, but, you know, nothing really stands out because she's not from there. She's not rich. But in the school, there's like this group called the F4, standing for Fantastic Four, I think, or Fabulous Four or something. And it's like these groups of the fourest richest families in all of the school, and they all happen to be childhood friends, and they're all super hot. But they run the school. Like, they run the school, they make the rules, and if you don't abide by those rules, they give you something that's called a red paper and put it in your locker, and basically you're now shunned. Minako kind of like does her own thing. She stays away from them. She just kind of works. She just wants to go to the school, and that's it. But then her friend gets bullied, and because her friend gets bullied, she feels like she needs to step up, and she does. She steps up to the F4, so basically, you know, she's now red flagged. But instead of like giving up and like accepting her fate, I think she kicks or punches them, like the main leader, Doyomji, oh my god, what's his name? Doyomji. And she basically kicks him, and like he's so enraged. And then he makes it like his personal like vendetta to make her life a living hell. But on top of that, she actually has a crush on one of the F4, and his name is Ryu. And Hanaza Ryu. She always calls him Hanaza Ryu. So she has this crush on Hanaza Ryu, and he seems like the nicer guy, but he's more like aloof. Basically, it's the story of her somehow becoming friends with them. It's awesome. I love it. I understand it's problematic. Like, it's 90s problematic and early 2000s. I get it. There's so many adaptations. I actually have to look here on my computer. 31 volumes of the manga. An anime series with 51 episodes, and it's really old, and the art is kind of garbage. And then we have a ton of live action. So then we have Hana Yara Dango in 1995. That's a Japanese, I guess, movie. Then Meteor Garden is a Taiwanese movie in 2001. Meteor Rain, another Taiwanese version. Meteor Garden 2 another Taiwanese. Boys Over Flowers, so this is a Japanese one, which is really good. Hana, Yori, Dango, final movie, so it's like the final movie of everything. And then Boys Over Flowers, the South Korean movie, which is in 2009. Meteor Garden in China, and that's on Netflix if anybody's curious, and I really like it. And then finally, there's a new one. It's F4 Thailand, Boys Over Flowers in 2001. So yeah, it's a classic for a reason, and there's a reason why they keep remaking it in all these different Asian countries. So yeah, I highly recommend it. So those are my romantic manga recommendations. Comment down below, let me know your manga recommendations, or if you've read any of the ones that I've mentioned, your thoughts on that. You can always find me on Instagram and Goodreads. Consider liking and subscribing if you like this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye!